Hello, hello, hello. I want to make a relaxing video with this rock, and I want to talk about that sequence from the Great Mass by Mozart. This one sequence of Agnus Dei. I think the sequence itself has a different name. I think in nomine patri, in the name of the Father. Agnus Dei means the lamp of God. I don't call these things God. I call it the blue God, because the sky is blue and the blue God sounds friendlier. And because the blue God came to me in, in 2003 in Los Angeles, in Marina del Rey. I had a migraine vision. It's true, I'm not making this up, but I know it sounds way out there. So I had terrible, horrific migraines because I was an atheist at that time. And being an atheist can come in different mind states. For me to hide in that mind state of atheism, for me that brings on migraine headaches. And the reason why is because I'm psychic, I'm highly intuitive. I have seen weird stuff in my life already before that. And I just simply knew that things don't stop with atheism. I knew that intuitively already, but I kidded myself because I was terrified. I was mentally ill. I had paranoia, fear, all kinds of terror and OCD and all kinds of rituals that I was doing. And atheism, it was some kind of armor that I was fleeing into. I was barricading myself in atheism. And then, of course, Paul kind of helped along, helped to box me more into that mind state, because he's in that mind state himself. So for him, it's like, for him, the intuitive part is much more unconscious. So he comes into that with this seemingly logistic kind of mind state, because the intuitive part is not very developed, probably also genetically, but it's all there. It's there. It is there in everyone, in every living being. It is, the intuitive part is there, but it can be overshadowed with the left hemisphere of the brain, with the logistic type of thinking. And in other people, that is more developed, as it is in me. And because of that, going into atheism is like running away from truth. And when we run away from truth, we can get very violent migraine headaches. My grandmother was suffering under that as well. And that's often accompanied with PMS as well. And so that one night, that one evening before there, we went to, that was very, very idiotic to even go there. We went to some kind of cult, which is that's already bizarre to even imagine Paul would go there. But, we went there because a friend of us, Hillary, she was hanging out with those people in Santa Monica, and she said, well, why don't you come along? We have a vegan dinner with them. So, and that's why Paul went, and that's why I went as well. And then I saw what this was all about. It was about a very old man who was trying to play God. And then he had this disciple there who looked like Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's what it was. And it was absolutely idiotic. And it was hideous. And I'm laughing about this now, but at that time, the communication with those people made me so mad that I felt like beating them. I wouldn't do it, but there was so much anger coming up against that God guy. The way he accused Paul of being German. And then he said, them German, them butchers. And then he just went on and on and on, contradicting his own ground rules that he had set in the beginning of their dinner. He said, we shall not speak negatively on anyone. And then in the end, while we were leaving, he said, them Germans, them butchers. And then he looked at me like, German butcher. So, and I was like, okay, so let's just get out of here then. And I regretted that they made us take our shoes off. So now I had fungus from them on the sole of my sock. Putting that into my shoes. That was not good for my OCD. But no, I didn't get any fungus. But I got a migraine headache out of that the next day. So I had trouble sleeping that night, thinking about that God guy. And it was quite unconscious. That's that anger, actually. The more unconscious an emotion is, the more troubling it is for us. The more it causes stress. The more we become conscious about an emotion, the more we can just cry it out or hit the pillow. That's what I really needed to do that night. I needed to slam the pillow hard. I needed a primal room. That's what I needed. But I didn't have a primal room. With padded walls and everything. Soundproof, where I can just slam myself against the wall and scream it all out. With Medusa screams and let the shit out on that God guy. And on the Jesus guy, Jesus guy was not much better. That Jesus guy, he really wanted to exploit Paul. He hated Paul. Oh my gosh. Man, I need to take a real creamy cake and just smash that cake into their faces. That's what I really need to do. So I didn't even know what was going on with me. I was an atheist. I hated humanity. And I just felt like the hell with all of them. They need to all be headboarded. And then that experience with these cold people, that was too much. So next day I got really nauseated. I felt like throwing up. I had this vicious migraine headache. And I had already been suffering from migraine headache, also like my grandmother did, periodically, with the PMS every month. And then that was just, it was just the epitome of a migraine headache. And I, not wanting religion, I thought everything was religion. Also, that's also what Paul thinks. And then Paul trying to indoctrinate me with his linearity. And I take that linearity and hide myself behind it, thinking then I don't have to think about the stuff that I'm afraid of, all of these things, that the other dimensions, or death, or suffering, all of this kind of stuff. It doesn't work that way. Well, the God level, not the God level, the God guy, the opposite of God level. Paul Watson is God level, but that's not God in a religious way. So the God guy, trying to be the Christian God, he's no longer alive. I can't, it's not possible. He was already like 90 years old at that time. But still, I have this old man, like really old man, trigger the shit out of me. But that has to do with my grandfather, because my grandfather has bullied me my whole life. He was psychologically abusive. So I carry a deep wound from that. But then it got confirmed again with that God guy, God pretending guy, the Christian God player, actor. So it was kind of like a cathartic experience with that enormous anger. I hope this video will be uploaded, because I don't know, it doesn't go over a certain, I think maybe up to 20 minutes and not more. So I had this migraine headache, and I finally said to the room, please help me. Help me make this go away. Help me make these migraines go away. I can't take it anymore. And then a light blue, transparent, jello-like hand, as I paint in my artwork also, like a real cutie hand, reached into my brain. That was the vision. And it did this here in my brain. Little hand right into my brain, fixing everything. And then it said, okay, it's done now. The migraines are gonna go away now. And in just a few minutes, the migraines were all gone. And so I did get a little bit headache again here and there, but it didn't go into a migraine, and it faded away very quickly. So it never got really, really bad. Get migraines for all kinds of reasons. It could also be static electricity. It could be bad, toxic stuff, pharmaceutical drugs, all kinds of things. When that happened with the migraine headache, I had already withdrawn from the pharmaceutical drugs. This whole thing tied in with the withdrawal symptoms that I was experiencing after I had quit the pharmaceutical drugs. All these medications that Dr. Shapiro gave me all these sample medications all the time, every time I went there. Gave me like a bag full of those samples. And in 2001 I tried to overdose with 100 of those. I took every one that he had given me. There are like over 100 pills of different things. Zyprexa, Risperdal, Seroquel, all of these unimaginably horrific things. And I ended up in the ICU, and there was a woman there from my hometown in Germany, and we spoke German in the middle of LA. The main nurse there that was in charge, I think Ulrike was her name, and I ranted and ranted while I was still drunk on the drugs. Before I passed out, I ranted and ranted against George W. Bush. I would not stop. And I made a real big fuss in the ICU about George W. Bush. And I hollered at everyone how bad George W. Bush is, and that we need to get rid of him. And it was intense. And so they finally got me hooked up to all kinds of things. And then something catastrophic happened. I passed out, and as I was passing out, my body took over. The Medusa took over, and Medusa tore herself off all of these instruments, EKG, EEG, needle in my arm, was already hooked up to a tube. I tore myself off from all of this and tried to stand up. And the earth had increased in gravity. I thought, whoa, I've never experienced anything like this before. There was like 100 times more gravity, and there was no way that I could be standing with my wobbly knees on this gravitational field. And the gravitational field sucked me down, and my body screamed. The cardiologist guy, Oriental guy, he came next day into my room, and he was snickering, and he said, well, when you tore yourself off and you screamed like he's never heard anyone screamed like hell. And that's when they all came running into the room, but I had passed out then. So I'd fallen down to the ground, completely passed out. They put me back on a stretcher, They put me back on all of that stuff. And then a couple of hours later, I woke up in my room and Paul was holding my hand, crying and sobbing, saying, I will never be mean to you again. I'll never, ever, it's not worth it. I'll never be mean to you again. Because he and my mother, they had been using me like a tug-of-war rope. It's a long story, long story. My mother said because his father, Ernie, had minor strokes and was hiding in his room, and I called my mother and I said, I don't know what to do about this. We need to do something. Paul said, don't do anything. And growing up in Germany, we have to do something when someone needs medical attention. My mother said, you have to do something. That's the law in Germany, but not in the United States. But it's my ethical duty. So I called rural services, and that got Paul into all kinds of interrogations. But, all of this tug of war got me, I was so fed up with all of that. That got me into it. I'm very, very sensitive. Okay, so, but after that, I had taken medication again. I had tried to withdraw one time, that didn't work. Then I took medication again, then I just could not stand it anymore. I could not, my liver couldn't handle it anymore. And so I had to quit the medication, had to. And then, like a couple of months later, into that withdrawal, that's when that happened, with that God pretender, and with the migraine headache, and with the blue God showing himself to me. Okay, so that's enough for now. I don't know if this video will upload. You guys take care. Bye bye.